Hello and welcome back to another episode of Fully Booked, the Hidden Gems author podcast, where Craig Touch and myself, Roland Hume, get down and dirty with the nitty-gritty of this crazy industry we're in of self-publishing, writing, becoming an author, and everything to do with that. And today we have a very special guest, somebody I'm delighted to talk to, JP McLean, who of course writes supernatural and urban fantasy books. I have actually worked very closely with her. I love what she's doing. I'm super excited to hear what you have to tell us today. So how are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. The weather's nice outside and it's a terrific time to be on your podcast.
I hear you. I'm trying to excuse my kids while I'm not taking them to the pool. But we also have the man himself, the founder and owner of Hidden Gems Books and an author himself, Craig Touch. How are you doing today, Craig?
I'm doing well. It's really overcast over here, so I'm definitely okay with being inside. Yeah, thanks for agreeing to come on, JP. It is definitely something that we're excited about because often we've done at least one back when we first started, sort of podcast that was almost like a case study kind of thing, where we talk about something that is of interest to authors, but also sort of talk to somebody who's specifically done it, has some results that they can sort of share, at least at a high level, so that people see what kind of like before and after they get. So in your case, and we'll get into this, but you have this book that was doing not as well as you thought it should do. You changed a bunch of things, title, cover, blurb, and now all of a sudden it's doing way better. So let's talk about that. And, first of all, why don't you let us know a little bit about what you write and what the book was and what sort of made you think, it was time to make a change.
Well, thank you. One of the things that I want to mention, especially with this podcast, is how important and how nice it is to be part of this writing community, because we all give back. We all pay it forward and we share our stories and we share our resources. And I just love that about this community. So I just wanted to say that right up front.
Absolutely. That's exactly why we do it.
Yeah,
that's the aspect of it I love as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So this book came out in 2012, originally, the first book, and it was the first book that I had written, and I had not expected that I would have a career in writing. So I was very, very new to this. And when the book came out, I made many, many mistakes. And I really came to understand, after about 5 years, I came to understand what that concept of you don't know what you don't know really means. Because I thought when the book first came out, first of all, I titled it Awakening, which was the theme of the book, which was not a very good title in the end, and I'll explain why in a minute. And then the other thing I did was I had a very strong opinion about what I wanted the cover to look like. And turns out my opinion is not very good for book sales and not very genre focused. I also thought that having a beautiful cover was a bonus, and I thought that having a cover that kind of stood out from the rest was also a really good thing to do, because people would notice it because it was different and beautiful. And all of those things were wrong. Absolutely all of those things were wrong. And it took me a long time to figure that out, but there were hints right from the very beginning that I completely ignored, because my friends and family told me how gorgeous the cover was and how beautiful it was and how terrific the cover was. And I couldn't agree more. I thought it was absolutely gorgeous. I hired a graphic designer, not a book cover designer, a very talented graphic designer, I gotta say, because she really did a bang up job of making a beautiful cover that stood out from all of the others. And so what I finally came to realize, I finally had to hear what people were saying, because people had told me all along. I had questions. Are these books religious? Or is the book, at the beginning it was just the book, but then every year I put another book out and they all had equally beautiful covers and equally religious titles. So theme titles: Awakening was the first one, Revelation was the second one, Redemption was the third one, and Penance was the fourth one. And so those were all the themes of the book and the titles, and they were very religious. And people kept asking me, are the books religious? And I kept saying, no, why would you think that? And there was nothing about the cover that said anything differently. than what the title of the book was, because you've got Revelation, you've got a beautiful foresty scene cover, no figures, no people on the covers, which as soon as I was selling the books at a market here on Denman Island, and some fella came up to me and he says, "My name is Frank, and I want to be frank with you. My wife just bought one of your books, and it wasn't exactly what we were expecting." And he said, "I've been to this market several times, and I've avoided your stall because I thought you were selling religious material, and it wasn't what I was interested in." And so after I heard that, I had to have a good sit me down with my ego and say, this is not working, and you've got to do something about it.
Yeah, I mean, like there's so much to unpack there, and I'm glad that you figured it all out, like on your own. It's something that Roland and I talk to authors about all the time, and we've definitely covered a lot of this in the blog and on other podcasts. But the idea of like making sure that you're targeting the right audience, that you've put together a cover that a lot of people do what you said, like they want it to fit what they have in mind, and they want it to look great, they want it to stand out from everyone else's, be different, and I get that, but there's a reason why a lot of the books in different genres have similar sort of kind of covers, right? The books in the top list, right? Because that's what people are expecting. It sort of tells the reader that the author knows the genre enough to to cater to what they're looking for, and it just helps in general, right? So when you're a huge name author that has a massive audience of your own, you can take all sorts of chances and do all sorts of different things, right? But when you're starting out, you don't want to rock the boat too much. You want to sort of like find your audience first, do what you need to do to get that audience to hit the right people, and bring them in. And so I'm glad that you figured that out. And like you said, a graphic designer can make a beautiful cover, but they don't understand what makes a good book cover. They don't understand the genre of your book, so they don't know what is needed. Like, I'm sure if that author did know, they could probably put together a great cover if they really understood all that. But if they don't, you end up with a pretty picture, but but not necessarily a great book cover. So yeah, it's really good. And that's the other thing too, that the fact that you talk to that person and he sort of explained to you too that just like the way it was giving off this religious overtone, like sometimes a book doesn't do well because not because there's anything wrong with the book, but that you've sort of accidentally targeted it at the wrong audience. And it sounds like that's also was one of your issues. So, kudos to you for figuring that out. A lot of people just never do, right?
Well, thank you. It was a long process. And by the time I had figured it out, I had the 5th book written, but didn't want to put it out with the, I should say I had the 6th book written because I had 5, I had 4 or 5 out. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It became an expense issue because to change the covers and to hire a professional cover designer and have to do 4 or 5 covers at the same time becomes an expense that is a little bit prohibitive. But nonetheless, I took the plunge, and at the same time, I had learned enough about the marketing of the books to know that it would be very helpful to have my cover in various formats. So not only in the ebook and print version, but I also wanted the marketing material that went with it. So I wanted the cover without the print on it. I wanted some banners and some 3D images. And this was before there were 3D images that you could create yourself for free. And I certainly didn't have the tech skills to do it. And so it took a while to find a cover designer that was willing to do all that and provide all that for me. I understand that's kind of standard procedure now, but back then it wasn't. And so I was tickled to find a company called JD&J Designs. They did a wonderful job. As a matter of fact, the cover that they redid for the first book, which was originally called Awakening, which is now Secret Sky, that book won best book cover for the fantasy genre in Kobo for the year it came out in 2018. So I knew right then I had the right people for the books because they did a great job.
Right, and that was the new cover, right? So
Yes.
yeah, great.
Yeah. And the other thing about, I mean, changing covers is easy. I don't mean, that part of it was easy, but changing titles is not easy. You lose all your reviews when you change titles. You have to get a new ISBN for each of the formats, and you pretty much say goodbye to everything that happened prior to you putting it out with its new title. So that's something that was a painful thing, because every single review, felt like I was pulling teeth to get. So that was hard to do, but I did, and this is a little plug for you guys, because I did hire you for the review service for Sacred Sky, and I got some terrific reviews as a result of that. So that's another thing that I picked up along the way, is how important reviews are, and so I needed to get those reviews up on that book as soon as possible.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, reviews versus no reviews definitely makes a difference, right? People compare a book. If they have two that they're trying to figure out between, and one has reviews and one doesn't, I mean, the one with reviews is gonna usually be the one they pick, right? It's that social proof that other people have tried it. And I mean, as long as the reviews aren't like horrible across the board, but all things being equal, it definitely helps. But the reviews won't help if the people aren't clicking through in the first place. And the thing that draws their eye first is a good cover, right?
Mm-hmm.
So once you made that change, I'm sure that brought more people to see, then to see the blurb, and then to see the reviews, right? They don't know about those until they've done that. And you changed the blurb around the same time, I guess?
I changed the blurb because, just like you say, the cover draws them in, and then the very next thing they do is they read the blurb. And my blurbs were not grabby. And that's another thing that I learned, was that I'm not very good at blurbs. In fact, I'm not very good at blurbs at all.
I think blurbs are the most difficult thing for any author to write, because they're so close to the book.
Yeah, absolutely. Summarizing it is ridiculously hard. And Roland, you came up with the blurb for this one, which I thought was just stellar. It's everyone wishes they could fly until they can, which I think is just terrific. But the writing the blurb that's copywriting, and that is completely different from writing prose.
Absolutely.
That's kind of interesting, because I come from an advertising and copywriting background. I mean, I've been writing since I was 9, but I was writing radio commercials as my first job, and like all the way along. So it's interesting to see it sort of viewed as copywriting. But I think it's so amazing the changes that you made and how much more on point they all are. Everyone's talking about you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but I think on Amazon everyone judges a book by its cover, and there's this weird thing. I always say it's like James Bond goes to the ambassador's reception and he wears a black tie, a tuxedo, right? Everyone's wearing a tuxedo because that is the dress code. And I think to have a book in a genre, you have to have certain elements match what is consistent among the top 100. So with thrillers, it's like 80% of them have sans serif text, normally in white. They have a shadowy figure here, a sort of vignette around it. It's almost like you can identify all of the elements by numbers.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to have a dress code. You want to be like James Bond and stand out by meeting the dress code, but at the same time, looking just a little different, a little more polished, which is the impossible thing to achieve.
Oh, yeah. I remember going in, putting my book into a book funnel freebie giveaway that authors use for promotion. And when the poster came out, it was a poster, and this was the old cover. So the poster had all of the book covers. So it was a really clear idea of what all the urban fantasy or supernatural books were. Mine was the only one that didn't have a figure on the front. So big alarm bells going off. I should have seen that a mile away, but I didn't. Yeah. I
mean, it's not something necessarily that's intuitive to people. And I think also the way the publishing industry has changed has altered that forever. Because I mean, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I read books because they were recommended to me by my parents, or they were the books that people were writing reviews about in newspapers, because it was all done through traditional publishing. And now self-publishing has opened things up to so many more people, but the way people identify and find books is completely different. And I think even traditional publishers haven't got their heads around that yet.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. People go on to these sites and they're flipping through covers. That's what they're doing. Even the feeds on Instagram, it's all about cover. Makes a big difference. But like you say, the
And
next thing they do is they pick it up and they read the back. So that's got to be the next thing that you really have to concentrate on, and that has to be just perfect.
It's almost like a journey. It's weird. It's like people are scrolling through Amazon. They see a cover that interests them. They click on that. Then next it's the blurb, and each one takes them closer to that, pressing the buy now button. And then the look inside. I think a lot of authors overlook the look inside because they go there to see the first page. And that's where they're like, oh, I like this person's writing style. I like that it's first person perspective. If they spot a typo in the look inside, that's a killer. And that's going to turn them off. It's like every single thing is a step closer to that buy now, and you have to get them all right. And it makes all the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to talk numbers for a little bit, the sales that I did some numbers just before coming onto the program here today, and the new book cover, the new title, everything came out in 2018, and my sales from 2012 to 2017, though that total, I doubled that in every year since. So I mean, the proof is in the pudding. This book has done really well since having new covers and new titles and new blurbs written for them. So it definitely makes a huge difference. And I think if you're a writer and you think your book is worthwhile, you're getting good reviews and people are enjoying it, you're not getting crap reviews anyway, then you should invest in it. Invest in whatever you need to do to get it to be at the level it needs to be, because there's sales to be made out there.
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing people don't appreciate. We get asked all the time to give advertising advice. And at the end of the day, the biggest piece of advertising advice is if you don't have a product people want to buy, it doesn't matter how much you advertise it, they're not going to buy it. But if you have a product people do want to buy, even if it just means you're making 1 cent more in royalties than you're spending on advertising, then from that point, you're making a profit and the world is your oyster. So if you can get the elements that you've got right, it makes advertising something that could actually transform your career. But if you haven't got that right, you can spend all the money in the world in advertising and you will still never make it.
Yeah, I agree.
And it is. And there's ways to tell what the various problems are, right? Like with your ads, if a lot of people are looking at your ads and not clicking, then the problem is with your ad. If they're looking at your ads and clicking but not buying, the problem is with your your metadata, your cover, your blurb, your whatever else, right? So there's those various levels where you could sort of narrow down the issue. But I think you hit it on the head when you're talking about putting a person on the cover. I think for your genre it's important as well. But I know, like, I see this all the time with romance authors. Romance is about people. It's a romance between two people, and when they have a cover that has no people on it whatsoever, it's a difficult thing to sell. Like, it could be a very beautiful cover, but you're selling the romance, so you should show at least one of the people on the cover. But it's very important for most genres, I think, to see people on it. That's because people are the ones buying it. It creates that connection, right? Yeah.
But interestingly enough, the feedback that I got, I did get some negative feedback about that first cover, and the negative feedback was, that's not what I thought she looked like.
Well, that's another danger. It's a lot of people make that comment about movies, right? When they make a movie out of a successful book, and people are like, well, that's not what I thought the person would look like, and that's one of the big things. I think Harry Potter got it right. Like, Harry Potter looked exactly like I think everybody expected him to look, and a lot of those characters. But a lot of the times, you hear that big criticism is like, that's not how I expected that person looked, right? And it's hard with your cover too, because unless you're getting a cover that is using original artwork, most authors, especially self-published authors, are using stock art, and you can't always find somebody who looks exactly like you've described in your book in the pose and everything that you need for your cover. So sometimes there is a little bit of you have to take a little bit of creative license, I guess, with what they look like.
I agree. I think that's why you see a lot of side shots and shots from the back and shots from the nose down or right, from the nose up, so that you're not seeing a whole face and you still can leave a little bit to the reader's imagination.
Yeah, exactly. And it's hard too, you know, sometimes people write these books with these characters that have all sorts of distinguishing marks or tattoos or whatever else. And then it's like, can the designer add those things in? Sometimes, but not always, right? So yeah, for sure.
And I think that's
So
part of it. Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think
ahead.
part of it is we conjure up the vision of what it is inside our own heads. I mean, when I design book covers, I always try and avoid having the faces specifically because of that. Even though in my head, I know exactly what they look like, but to the reader, they could look completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say a little bit too about how you go about finding some of these people. And one of the best resources that you've got, I think, are other authors in your genre. You can oftentimes take a look, even if you don't have their books, you can download the Peek Inside, and oftentimes you'll see either if you get the acknowledgements, or sometimes on the copyright page, they will list their designers. So you can get some good ideas for who designed their covers from that, and follow them, find out who it is they're using for their blurb writing if they're not doing it themselves. I have some writer friends that are much better than me at doing the blurb. Mind you, anyone who didn't write the book is better at doing the blurb than you are. And I got to give them credit for giving me the titles, because I don't think I came up with one of the new titles. All of those titles came from suggestions from other people. And I did do a little bit of when I was looking for the latest title, I sent it out to my newsletter and I put it on my blog post. Like, okay, I'm not good at titles, so this is what I'm doing, and what do you think of these titles? And give me some more titles. And that's how we came up with the title for the latest one. So.
Yeah, title by committee. It's I mean, it's good. It's you know, sometimes when I put out things in the past and you give a bunch of selections, oftentimes it'll be like an even split, and that doesn't really help you. Everyone's, you know, 30% said this, 30% said that, 30% said that. I'm like, okay, I'm back to not having any idea. But yeah, I mean, oftentimes, like you said, the blurb, you're because you're so close to the book, it's hard to narrow it down to that sort of core that you oftentimes an author will want to write just too much, right? Because they know everything about the book and they have so much to say about it, and they're not sort of narrowing it down to the stuff that's going to grab you. And you know, that's why Roland is really good with that, with putting together a blurb that can pull in a reader and get them to want to read more. And that is, I agree, it's a skill. And I also agree it's a copywriting kind of advertising skill. You can be an amazing writer and not be a great blurb writer, or you can be a great blurb writer and not a great novel writer. It's hard for a lot of people to do both, because it really is a different skill set.
Yeah, and I do think I could probably do a much better job of writing a description for anybody else's book. Roland and I have worked together 3 times now, and even in the latest one that we did, I kept coming back with more wordy suggestions. He kept saying, "Cut it, you don't need to say all that." You know, and then I was like, "Oh yeah, right, okay, fix that."
I was just working on another blurb actually, where there's this hugely important plot element in this person's book involving somebody who knew the protagonist. But of course, you don't need to include that in the blurb. All you need to do is just have enough in the blurb to make people want to read more. So and I mean, with Secret Sky, it was just such an amazing thing. It was an amazing concept to have, you know, somebody who learns how to fly, but actually it's not quite like it is in the movies. Or what was that TV show, Great American Hero, where, you know, he learns to fly and it's kind of a struggle. It was really good, because what you had was a really interesting idea of it being like a blessing and a curse at the same time, which I don't know, it was compelling. And I think I was able to spot what I found compelling about your book in a way that perhaps you didn't, because you were so close to it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, what I love about your story is that you changed the covers and you changed the blurbs, but your books didn't change. The fundamentals and the idea and the concepts didn't change. And I think that's very affirming to a lot of authors, to be like, no, you know what, your book is good. It's how you market your book that's really important. Because I think people.
Yeah, and that's something to remember, that a lot of authors sort of, I don't know if they forget or they're just not thinking about it clearly, is when they have poor results in terms of let's say getting people to discover the books, and even for people that are getting people to sign up for the reviews or whatever, I hear it from authors sometimes, they're saying, well, the book is really good, you know, it's won this award and it's done this, and I'm always like, well, don't forget, these people haven't read the book. This isn't a criticism of the book, right? It's a criticism, or I mean, if it's even a criticism, but it's a problem with getting the people to the book. And not, if you're getting bad reviews, that's a problem with the book. But getting people to sign up for it has nothing to do with the interior of the book, because they don't know that yet, right? They only know the cover and the blurb and the genres and the subgenres and they only know that stuff. And so, you can't really take it as, and so it sounds like you knew that the book was solid. You didn't have to change that. So you changed the things that you did. So in terms of the numbers, like, just so we can break down sort of the idea of what it was that sort of, because I know you said you published more books as it went, right? So to make sure we're sort of like comparing the right things, when you had, do you know, for instance, like sort of like a month, before you changed the cover and then the month after, was that a noticeable bump? That doubled. Okay.
Doubled the month after.
That's a huge.
Mind you, the book came out at the end of 2018, and almost immediately Kobo contacted me to say, we're putting your book in the contest and for the best cover. And I think just that happening in itself in the first month that it came out was a huge boost. So, I mean, that may have influenced, I'm sure it did influence a little bit of the sales, but it's been consistent since then as well. It's not just in a one-off month.
Right, but that's only going to affect Kobo sales. And you're talking, did it double only on Kobo or everywhere?
I actually didn't break it out into which retailer. I just took the total numbers. So I'm sorry, I don't have that information broken out that way. It's just overall, I can say that they doubled.
Yeah, but in general, I'm sure you have sort of an idea. Like in general, the sales went up, even if it wasn't double or whatever. But like they went up on other sites, not just Kobo.
Yes, and most of my sales are actually not through Kobo. Most of my sales are through Amazon. So that's
standard too. Yeah, exactly. Because you could have, for most authors, if you had your book on every site and you all of a sudden only doubled on Kobo, it wouldn't double your overall sales. No. So I think when you're looking at your overall saying it doubled, that wasn't just from the Kobo sales.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
Yeah. So that definitely tells us something. So did you also change your marketing strategy right at that point, or was it just changing the title, the blurb, and the cover?
No, I did the review service, which I hadn't done before. So,
but when did those reviews go live? Did they go live like right when the cover changed, or was it?
No, they trickled in. They trickled in. So and plus I put please out on my website and on my blog and on social media, just asking people who had reviewed it when it was called Awakening to please repost the reviews under Secret Skies. So of course they didn't come up as verified reviews because it wasn't a purchase, but still I'll take a review.
Yeah, and you know what? Honestly, I don't. First of all, when somebody borrows it in KU, it doesn't show as verified either, right? So unverified doesn't really mean anything, and I'm not sure how many people pay that much attention to it. I personally think that most people look at your overall score, and it's very few that like drill in and start reading the individual reviews. And then how many of those are really saying, well, that's not a verified review? Like, I mean, because there's going to be the people that leave ARC reviews, if they don't like the book, they're going to leave negative ones too. So if they're going to discount the positive unverifieds, they might as well discount the negative ones too, right? So I don't think it really makes a huge difference. But yeah, if your sales changed, before all that stuff even came in, then again, it points to the actual changes of the cover and the blurb and the title as the real indicators of what made the big difference. And of course, the fact that it's continuing to do well, that could be, in part to all the other things that you continue to do, advertising and, the reviews and all that stuff. So you're saying every year it's doubled the past year? Or it's,
yes, actually my last year, 2021, was my best year ever for sales for the book. So it's just gotten better and better and better.
And is that just the first book or like the series in general?
That's the first book, but the series as well. I mean, the read through isn't 100%. Obviously, it's much less than that. But the read through improved as well. So not only did sales of book one improved, but sales of book 2 and book 3 also improved by leaps and bounds. So changing the covers and the blurb and the titles was absolutely the right thing to do, because I think it proved that the books are good enough to sell through and sell well, and they weren't doing that before. So, well, I mean, they were barely holding on, but nothing like what I'm seeing today with the book sales. So I think it was definitely worth the pain of going through and the expense, because it was not inexpensive to do all those books all at once. But that's just, you got to do it if you want to stay in the game.
For sure. And listen, if you're doubling every year, like how many years until you've got Elon Musk money? I mean, come on. But I think too, you're always going to see the increase in read through as a raw number. If you're selling more of book 1, right, you're gonna obviously see more of 2 and 3, right? But did you notice like a percentage change as well in terms of, if there were 10% of the people reading through before and now it's 20%, or is it the raw number increase?
Yeah, well, the raw number increased. I didn't break it down into the percentage of people that read through from book 1 through to the end. But I would say that the first 3 books, the percentage of people who read the first 3 books, if you read the first one, there's between a 40 and 50% chance you're going to read the second one. And if you read the second one, the percentage goes way up. It's like 60 or 70% that you're going to read the third one. And I haven't done the stats on the other books, but the read through is quite strong, I think, for those.
No, that's amazing. I mean, and that's higher than average. And I mean, that tells you that, keep writing more books in that series, because if you're hooking readers, it's so cheap. Well, hopefully this is your strategy, but usually what authors do is only sort of concentrate their advertising on book 1, right? And then you sort of get that free, because of the read through, you get those free sales by the more copies of book 1 you sell, the more. And so the more books in your series, assuming that they're not just tailing off because, the quality, obviously if you run out of ideas, you don't want to jump the shark, keep going to the well once it's run dry. But if you're still seeing that read through, the fans still want to read more. And that's just like, it's like printing money at that point.
No, yeah. Well, I'm not quite at the printing money stage. But...
Well, no, I just mean, you're gonna advertise book 1 for X amount of dollars, and if you have 2 books and your read through is, you're gonna make this much, and if you have 3 books, it's still the same money that you're spending on book 1 advertising, but now you have 3 books, you're making more. You have 4 books, you're making more. You have 5 books, you're making more, right? So you keep doing that until you find that people aren't interested anymore.
I learned a trick not that long ago. I was on a podcast with some other writers, and the question was asked about how I market the series. And I said just what you said. I advertise book 1. I do graphics up on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and I do ads, and I put book 1 on for 99 cents and, push the rest of it. And both writers on that program said to me, you're leaving money on the table. You need to be advertising book 2 and book 3 and up to book 4. Put them on for 99 cents, because you will find that your sales grow as a result of that. And I was skeptical, but they both said it would work. So I tried it. I put book 2 on sale in June for 99 cents. And sure enough, people bought book 1 and 2. Lots of people bought book 1 and 2. In fact, I had sales of the entire series by putting book 2 on sale. So you can bet your boots I'm going to be putting book 3 on sale for 99 cents in the next couple of months. And just to see, if book 2 did that well, then let's put book 3 on sale.
What was your pricing on, before you put book 2 on sale at 99 cents? What was your pricing for the later books? $4.99. So they were all $4.99.
Yeah, the first book is Secret Sky. I keep that one at $2.99. So when it goes on sale, it goes down to 99 cents. But all the other ones go down to 99 cents when I put them on sale too.
Okay, so you're not keeping book 1 at 99 cents. You're sometimes you go on sale, but you're still advertising it when it's $2.99. You're just sort of always advertising it.
Yeah, I keep a low level Amazon ad running all the time. It doesn't cost me very much money, but it keeps the book out there in the, advertising sphere. But when I do advertise, I actually do stacked ads. When I put it on 99 cents, I should say, I do stacked ads. So I'll put it on. Usually I use Bargain Booksy. Well, it depends on the genre, right? Which companies you use. But for Urban Fantasy, I find Fussy Librarian works, Bargain Booksy works, and there's a third one and I can't quite remember it. Oh, anyway, it'll come to me, I'm sure.
And so have you run the numbers in the sense that, you sell, say, 50%, you had mentioned, of book 2 when, for the readers from book 1, right? So if you're advertising book 1 and people are buying it at $4.99, is that making you more or less money than when you advertise book 2, have to drop the price to 99 cents and then advertise book 2? Are you seeing an increase in overall income there, minus your advertising expenses? Like, I'm just wondering how effective it is to do it that way, as opposed to just ramping up, say, your spending on book 1. Because obviously, like, you definitely can, especially, so is your book, can they be read as standalones, or you have to basically read them in order?
They can be read as standalones. They're not as much fun, but they can be read as standalones.
Okay, so that definitely helps, because if they're standalone, it's definitely easier to market later books in the series, right? It's harder when it's like advertise book 2, but you got to have read book 1 first, or advertise book 3, you've got to have read book 1 and 2 first. And that's definitely where I would probably personally shy away from even advertising those at all, really. Standalones, though, for sure.
You're right.
It makes more sense. I'm just wondering, though, whether or not you're making the same amount of money as when you had them at $4.99, right?
Well, it's interesting. When I put a book on sale, I rarely make back my cost of the ad the month that I run it. So because it's a 99-cent book, so you're getting 30 cents, 35 cents. So you're not getting a lot of money back on that book. What you get your money back on is the read through. Right. So you kind of have to play it out a little longer. And the other thing I've discovered about ads is, if your book is 99 cents, you'll get a lot of downloads, a lot of sales, but you won't have people reading those books right away. They'll read the book they bought for $4.99 first. So typically the 99-cent sales don't end up with read through until much later. Whereas if I sell a book for full price, I can see the read through more readily on those books than I can. The 99-cent sales, like the bulk of that 99 cents, if it fell into the same pattern as my normal read throughs, I would see a bulk of book 2s being bought and a bulk of book 3s being bought, but I don't. I see it trickle out over a long period of time. So I think people just stack up on those 99-cent books in their Kindles, and at some point they figure they're going to read them. Whether they get around to it or not, I don't know. I wish they would.
Well, they probably do if you're seeing it sort of as a delayed response, but you're going to see probably less of them. It's the same with the free, right? When people put it on for free, they have tons of downloads, but their read through of those even just that book, never mind the rest of the series, is often quite low, because people they see something go for free and they pick it up, whether they're ready to read it or even ever going to read it. It's like, who cares? It's free right now. I'll take it just in case I want to read it. So often you'll see, a big spike in those downloads, but that doesn't necessarily translate into reads and read throughs and all that. But are you ever do you ever do a free strategy, or you stick to the 99 cents? I
have not done a free strategy. The only people that get the book for free are the ARC readers. And I don't, there's something, I know it works. I know a lot of people say you should put the first book for free. It's, the way to go. Maybe you get more reviews putting it for free, and maybe that's something I should think about in future. But geez, I find it difficult. I know I don't value things I get for free as much.
Yeah, exactly. I think that you have a better strategy. If you find that the 99 cents is working, I would stick with that. Free is, like you said, they don't value it as much. I don't think that you will get more reviews, because it's the same thing. Like, you get a lot of downloads, but not everyone's reading it. And those people that are, they're reading a ton of them. They're not necessarily reading reviews. I don't ever hear from people saying, I got 1,000 people downloading my free book, and I got tons of reviews from it. Most of the time it's the opposite. It's like, I can't believe nobody's reviewing this, even though like so many people downloaded it. So I think that there's other reasons to do free, but if you have a paid strategy that works, I would stick with that, because you might as well get paid. And like you said, there's value in stuff that costs money, and free stuff people sort of value less, right? And it's the same, like a lot of people use it for list building, mailing list building. They'll put it on and they'll have it where you have to submit your email address, and that puts them on the mailing list, and then they get the book for free. But those people don't typically translate into paid buyers anyways. So it's more of a vanity thing. You're growing your list, and now you have thousands of people on your mailing list, but like, how many are opening it? How many are clicking when you actually send them an email saying, hey, here's my new book for $4.99? No, if nobody's doing it, then you're really just wasting money by spending money on MailChimp or whatever it is to pay for that list being so big. And, it's not really worth it. Those people are the ones that, maybe you can get them to be ARC readers, and then say, listen, I'm expecting that you might be reviewing this book if I send it to you. But in general, if you're expecting them to turn into buyers, I don't think it happens at a very good rate.
Yeah. I do offer I do have one freebie that I offer. It's not free right now. You have to buy it. But if you join my mailing list, you get it amongst a number of other short stories for free. And one of the things about the newsletter freebie, it's a novella, but it is in the same world. It's in the Secret Sky neighborhood, actually. There's a little homage to the main character, because the characters in the freebie book walk by the house with the red car in the driveway, and everyone knows the red NGB is Emmeline's car from Secret Sky if they've read it, or if they read it after, they'll recognize, oh, that's the neighborhood I was in. So
okay, but here's the question: are you where do they find that link to sign up for that book and get that free novella? Is it within one of the books that they already bought, or
yes,
is it
in
somewhere?
all of the books?
Okay, then that is a valid strategy, right? Because now they are people that spend money, right, to buy books, because they had to do that to just get that. So in that sense, yes, it's a great list building strategy. I'm talking more about the people that put it up on what's that site that does that?
BookFunnel?
Yeah, BookFunnel, right. And they put a book up on BookFunnel, and you have to sign up for their mailing list, blah, blah, blah. They've never heard of that author before. They sign up, they get the free book, and they're on the mailing list. Those people have very little value, in my opinion. But the way you're doing it, that's the right way to do it. They've bought the book. They do have value. They do buy books. Now you're giving them sort of a value add that puts them on your newsletter, that now allows them to hear about new books that come out. And those are people that buy books. So your click-through rate and your open rate will be much, much higher than from people that got a book for free off of BookFunnel, for sure.
Yeah. And I think we all do the BookFunnel thing. I certainly did that. And I found the exact same thing you're talking about. I ended up with people on my mailing list, and they didn't know why they were on my mailing list, and they get off my mailing list, and they weren't opening. So that's definitely something. You don't want people on your list who aren't engaged. And, I do still have a bunch of people on my list who aren't engaged, and I need to do one of those cleanup campaigns, but it's just on my TTD list somewhere down near the bottom.
Yeah, once you start getting into the next pay tier of whatever the mailing list situation you're in, that's when it motivates you more to start cleaning up your list, right?
That's right.
I totally understand that.
Yeah.
I think there's so much wisdom to be outlined here. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. We're at 1:46, but this has been such a fascinating conversation. I think a very valuable conversation, because getting the elements that you've got right make or break your career as a self-published author. Because if you have something that more people will buy than not buy when you bring them there, that's going to enable you to scale things to all sorts of different levels. So hopefully people have been listening to this and paying attention. And I can say that my own experiences have been exactly the same. I changed the blurb for a book, and suddenly the number of visitors I got that converted into sales doubled overnight. And it's such a huge thing. So JP McLean, that has been an amazing thing. Do you have any final thoughts, Craig?
No, I'm sort of in the same boat where I think that this is incredibly valuable for authors to hear about your experience and not just reading our blogs about these issues, which, like I said, we've written a bunch of them. But when you put it into the perspective of a real case where the person has done these kinds of things and seen the results that you've seen, it just makes people understand it in a better context than, just this pie in the sky. Hey, yeah, you should do this. Yeah, sure, I should. I don't know, but it works, right? It definitely works, and you're proof
Pain
of
is worth the gain. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, thanks so much for being on here and being willing to share your story and talk a bit about your numbers and the things that you did wrong and that you learned to do right. I'm really, really grateful that you're sharing that with us all.
Oh, well, thank you. It's been fun being on here.
Well, where can people find your books?
Oh, they can find them on, they're wide, so they're available everywhere. They can find them through my website, jpmcleanauthor.com.
That is awesome. We will make sure to pop a link down there below. And hopefully we could maybe have you on board again, because I think this is a discussion we could continue. And so many more things that could be brought into that would, I think, really give people some valuable perspective on how they can level up, even with where they are right now in their writing career.
Good. Yes, love to.
So, well, we will wrap things up. Thank you so much for joining us for this. This has been a really, really valuable podcast. And yeah, this has been one of the best that I've been involved with. If you are listening and you want to give JP McLean some appreciation, make sure to hit that like button, leave a comment down below. If you haven't already, subscribe, whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening to us as a podcast. And we will be back next week with another special guest and another episode of Fully Booked. Thank you so much for joining us.